Good morning, everybody. As we start the chitas of the day, today is Thursday, which is the fifth reading in the portion of Parshas Nosai. We are holding on chapter 7, Numbers chapter 7, verse number 1. It came the day that Moses finished erecting the Mishkan. And he anointed it, and he sanctified it. There's called Caleb and all its vessels. There's a Mizbeach and the altar. That's called Caleb and all its vessels. And he anointed them, and he sanctified them. So Rashi says, the day the Mishkan was erected, the word kalois is the root word of kala, a bride, because it's like the day that God, so to say, married, like a bride and a groom. The day that God married the Jewish nation, became united with the Jewish nation. Alois Moshe, so Rashi says, Betzalel and Eliab, those are the main construction architects and builders, and all the wise-hearted men assembled the Mishkan. Yet Scripture credits Moshe with it, because he was utterly devoted himself to it, overseeing that the design of each article confirmed with what he had shown in Mount Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu just didn't give over the job. He was involved in every minute detail, and he did not err in any design. Similarly, we find by David that since he devoted himself to the building of the temple, even though he didn't build it, it's called on his name, the temple of David and Shlomo. B'yom Kalois, Rashi says it does not say the day it was erected, it's saying the day that it was finished. This teaches us that through the 7 days of Miluyim, investors, Moshe erected it and dismantled it every day. But on the day that it was erected, that day marked the ending of his erecting the Mishkan, and from now on, it was not erected by him; it was put together by the tribe of Levi. And this was happened on the first day of the month of Nisan. On the second day, the red cow was burnt. On the third day, they sprinkled the first sprinkling. On the 7th day, the Levium were inaugurated into their service of the temple. Verse number 2. By giving the sea Israel, and then started the heads of the tribes brought an offering. Rashi Beis Avaisan, the heads of the tribes, Nasi Amates, who were the leaders of the tribes. They were the one who were present during the counting. So Rashi says, the Medrash says, who were these Nesiim? These were the officers in Egypt, the taskmasters, who took the beating for the people. When the Pharaoh got angry at the Jews that they weren't doing their job, he would beat the taskmasters. And that was they became the Nesiim. God rewarded them to become the leaders of the tribes. Verse number 3. And they each brought their sacrifice. So they bought 6 covered wagons, and 12 oxen. A wagon for each of the two chieftains, two leaders, and an ox for each one, Mishkan, and they brought them to the temple as a gift. Rashi says simply covered wagons. Covered wagons are called tzeviim. Rashi says, so Moshe did not accept them from their hands until he was instructed to do so by God. And Nasa said, why did the chieftain see to be fit the first to contribute here were considering the work of the Mishkan, they were not the first to contribute, but last. However, the Nesiim said as follows: let the people contribute what they can, and then we'll complement whatever is missing. That was their mistake. When they saw that the people had supplied everything, as they said, and the work was sufficient, and there was nothing left for them, so they brought the Avnei Shoyam, we mentioned in the book of Exodus, and the fillings of stones for the ephod and the choshen. Therefore, now when it came to the dedication of the temple, they were the first to bring. They didn't make the mistake a second. Yom Hashem al Moshe, and God said to Moshe, saying, "Kach mi itam, take it from them. It'll be for the service of the temple. Will give these wagons to the Levites. Each person, each family, according to his job, will have certain wagons to put the Mishkan upon it, so they can travel upon these wagons." Moshe took the wagons, and also the cattle, and he gave it to the Leviim as God said. He gave 2 wagons and 4 oxes to the sons of Gershon, according to their work. Why? Because the burden of the sons of Gershon was lighter than the sons of Merari, who carried the planks, the pillars, and the sockets. So therefore, Merari got most of the wagons. Verse 8. And the 4 wagons, and the 8 oxes, Nasal named Merari, gave it to Merari. The Kivia Vedasam, according to their service to schlepping the walls, which needed a lot of wagons, the Yadisam ben Arakayan in the hand of Isamar, the son of Aaron. Verse 9. Bnei Kosli Nasam, but the family of Kosli didn't give them anything, because when they carried their obligations, it was the vessels of the Mishkan, they carried it by Kosev, so they had to carry it on their shoulders. So they couldn't put the Arain and the Menorah, and didn't put that on wagons. They carried it, actually, imagine this, they carried it through the desert. Verse number 10. So, verse number 10, given Nasim, and the Nasim, the leaders, the chiefs, brought an offering of dedication, the altar, the day that it was anointed. It says Kabbanim, and now the Nasim brought their sacrifice before the altar. Rashi says after they had contributed the wagons and the oxes for carrying the Mishkan, they were inspired to bring also a sacrifice. By again, they brought it from Mizbeach. Again, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to bring a sacrifice. Moshe Rabbeinu did not accept it until the next verse, when God says to accept it. Verse 11. God said to Moshe, yes, let each and every Nasi bring one sacrifice every day. Each and every Nasi should bring a sacrifice for the day, the Chanukah Samizbeach, for the dedication of the altar. Rashi, the Moshe Rabbeinu still did not know how to bring the offerings, whether in order of the birth, namely in order of Jacob's sons who were born, or according to the order of the traveling, until he was instructed by the Holy One, blessed be he, they should bring the offering according to the order of the way they traveled. And that's why the front of the order was Yehuda, and he brought it first, even though he was not the oldest. Reuven was the oldest in the order of birth, but Yehuda was in the front line. He was a Degel, Machne Yehuda, that traveled in the front of all the camps. The first day of the sacrifice was brought by Nachshon ben Aminadav, Lemati Yehuda, Nachshon, the son of Aminadav, to the tribe of Yehuda. So the first day, that day acquired 10 crowns. It was the first day of the creation, the first day of offering of the chieftains of Seder and Seder Elam. This was a great celebration, the first day of the month of Nisan, which Nachshon ben Aminadav from the tribe of Yehuda started the dedication and the celebration of the building of the Mishkan. The Rashi scripture traces his kingship to his tribe, Nachshon, the son of Aminadab, to the tribe of Yehuda. But not that he solicited the offering from his tribe and then offered it up, or perhaps it says that the tribe of Yehuda to teach us that he indeed solicited the offering from his tribe and then brought it. So we say that this was the offering of Nachshon ben Aminadab, that he brought it himself. That he didn't go to his tribe to collect the money for this sacrifice. Every Nasi was so excited and be able to represent their tribe and bring a sacrifice and dedicate it to the Beis Hamikdash, that they brought it on their own free will and their own money. Verse number 13. And his offering was Paras Ketzav Achaz, was one silver bowl weighing 130 shekel. Mizrach Echad Ketzav, one silver sprinkling basin weighing 70 shekel, according to the holy shekel. Shnei Meleim Seilas, both of them were filled with flour, Belulu Bashemen mixed with oil, Lemincha for a meal offering. Verse number 14, Kaf Achas Asara Zav, one spoon weighing 10 shekel, Malay Ketor is filled with incense. Rashi says Asara Zav rendered it contained the weight of 10 shekel, according to the holy shekel. We don't find incense brought to the individual or the outer copper altar, except this case was keteris brought by an individual. This is a temporary order that they brought to keteris, but it was never brought in the Beis Hamikdash by an individual person. Verse 15. Parach ben Bakar, they brought a young bull, one ram and one lamb. Kevazav and Shasal Elo, and first year for a burnt offering. Here is the Mechal Lachatas, and one goat, he goes for a sin offering. What was the sin? To atone for the cleanliness caused by a grave in the depth, in an unknown grave which may lie in the earth, over which people unknowingly pass, render them unclean, which is a case of an uncertain contamination. That was the chatas, to bring a chatas if anybody became impure through the dead, not knowing. Verse 17. And for the peace offering was 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 lambs in the first years. This is the korban of Nachshon ben Aminadab. Verse 18, the second day was brought by Nasana B'Tzur, the son, the leader of Yisachar. He brought his offering. Verse 19, he brought the same offering of 1 silver bowl of weighing 130 shekel. 1 silver sprinkling basin weighing 70 shekel. The shekel HaKodesh, the holy shekel. Both of these were full of flour, a little bit of shemen, mixed with oil, the mincha for a mincha. Rashi says, why do we underline the tribe of Yisachar? Tribe of Yisachar, not connection to any other tribe. Hikriv, over here says Hikriv on the tribe of Yisachar, not even by Hamakriv. Over here it says Hikriv, a different kind of wording Torah uses, because the tribe of Yisachar, because Reuben came and complained, Rashi says, that it was not enough that my brother Judah had preceded me, let me at least offer it after him. So Moshe Rabbeinu told him that they should offer up in order which they travel, according to the division. That's why it says Hikriv, which the word Hikriv means it's missing a yud. So it's giving him in Hakriv. It's imperative for him to command by the Almighty bringing the offering, even though Reuven should have maybe stepped in. But instead, what the meaning of Hikriv tribe, because of 2 reasons. He is a merit to be the second of the tribes to offer the sacrifice. One, because they were well versed in the Torah. And the son of Yisachar were understanding of times. Another because they advised the chiefs to contribute this offering. The writings of Moshe Dash found the following. That Pinchas, the son of Yair, says that Nisanel, the son of Tzur, gave them this idea. So therefore, they came the second, Yisachar. Now here you have the Gematria. Karas Kesev, Rashi says, one silver bowl. Karas Kesev, the numerical value of these two words, the Gematria amount is 930, corresponding to the years of Adam, the first man, that lived 930. The weight of 130 shekel, alluding to the fact that he, Adam, began to raise his family to maintain the existence of the world. He was 130 years old. And it says in the Torah, Adam lived 130 years and then he had Shais. That's when the world started to live. Next one, Mizrak Echad, one silver sprinkled basin. Again, over here, Rashi uses Gematria, numerical value. The Gematria, the word, three words, is 520. Alluding to Noah, who began raising a family at the age of 500. And alluding to 20 years before his children were born, in which the decree of the great flood was enacted. As explained it to be the meaning of the verse, his days shall be 120. That is why the word Mizrak Echad Kesev rather than Mizrak Kesev Echad, as in the case of the silver bowl, Mikailas Kesev Echad, to tell us that even the letters of the word Echad are included into the calculation. So here you have another Gematria that is used to teach us something in the Torah. Shivim shekel, it weighed 70 shekel. Rashi says this 70 shekel alludes to the 70 nations. Half achas, one spoon. Ashar Azov, which was 10 shekel. Malaya Keteris full of incense. Rashi says, Kaf achas, Keneged HaTorah. That corresponds to the Torah, which is given by the hand of the Holy One, blessed be he, Kaf. Asar Zav, it weighed 10 shekel to the 10 commandments. Melea Keteris is a beautiful gematria, another miracle value. Rashi says the gematria of Ketores is 613. Corresponds to the 630 commandments, provided that you convert the kuppah into a dalet. So that's when you have another concept of flipping letters. Because Ketores is more than 613. So you have to turn the kuf into a dalet. They at bash dak. So this is where you flip the letters. Aleph to Taf, Beis to Shin, Gimel to Reish, Daled to Kuf. So if you flip the Daled to a Kuf, so now you can have 613. Daled is 4, Tes is 9, is together is 13, Reish and Taf is 600. So you also numerical value, and also you can flip the letters. In Hebrew language, you can change letters. Verse 21. One bull, young bull, one ram, and one lamb. Why were there three different kinds? Panechad, the bull, was for Abraham. Ayelechad, one ram, was Kedeged Yitzchak. As it says, he took the ram. Kevin Echad, and the lamb was Kedeged Yaakov. Correspond to Jacob. Sin ism echad, lachatas, one he goat for the sin offering. Rashi says that represents Yosef. This came to forgive for the sin of Joseph, who was sold, and they slaughtered a goat. Verse 23. For the peace offering was Bakashtaim, 2 oxes, Elim Chamisha, 5 rams, Atunu Chamisha, 5 goats. Kvatz Bnei Shana Chamisha, 5 lambs. There Karban Nesano Ben Tzur. So Rashi says, one of the 2 oxes that corresponds to Moses and Aaron. And brought peace. The Zevach HaShlavim, the peace offering, was 2 rams. Who were the 2 rams of the Jewish people who brought peace? That was the Moshe and Aaron who brought peace. Elim Atudim Kvasim, there was rams, he-goats, and lambs. These 3 correspond to Kehanim, Levi, Israel. And also, it corresponds to Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuv, and Tanakh. The Torah has 24 books, which is divided between Torah and Nevi'im and Ksuv. Shalosh, Chamish, Keneg, Chamish, Chumshin. There you have 3 5s in the verse. Those are for the 5 books of the Torah. Make sure Divrei, Saksum, Maluch, and also 5 that was written on 1 tablet, and 5 on the 2nd tablet. All this is expanded in the comments of Ramesh Hadarshan. You can find all these things alluded to in his explanation. Verse 24. And then the 3rd day was the tribe of Zvulun. Eliyav ben Chelon. Eliyav, the son of Chelon. God said on the 3rd day, the chieftain who brought the offering was from the sons of Zvulun, and so with all of them. However, regarding the Sanel, about who states Hikin the Sanel brought it, it's appropriate to follow it with the phrase the chieftain of Yisachar. Unlike other instances where it refers to the chieftain as the chieftain of the son and so followed by the name. Since his name and that what he offered had already been mentioned. Concerning the others, where it does not say Hikriv, he offered the appropriate wording is this: the chieftain was the son of so and so that day. The chieftain who brought the offering was from such and such a tribe. Verse 25. So you're going to go through every one of them, what they brought. He offered the ones same. They brought the exact same thing every day. He brought 130 shekel. They brought 1 silver sprinkle space and weighing 70 shekel. Shekel HaKodesh, Neim Aleim Sailors, both are filled with flour, shemen mixed with oil. Verse 26. They 1 spoon weighing 10 shekels of gold filled with incense. Verse 27. Paracha ben Bakar, 1 bull. Ayel echad, 1 ram. Keves echad, 1 sheep. And so it's a year old for a burnt offering. Verse 28. 1 young he-goat for a sin offering. Verse 29, and for a peace offering, he bought 2 oxen, 5 he-goats, 5 lambs, 5 lambs of the 1st year. This was the offering of Eliyav ben Chelon. Verse number 30, and the 4th day, Nasal of Reuven, they brought the tribe of Reuven, the chief of the tribe of Reuven, Elitzur ben Shteir. Verse 31, he brought an offering of 1 silver bowl, weighing Mishkal, Shloishim Mishkala, with 130 shekel its weight. Mizakach HaKasa, 1 silver sprinkling basin. Shivin shekel weighed 70 shekel. Shekel HaKodesh, holy weights. Shnei Malay, so both of these were full of flour. Mashevim mixed with oil for Kaf Achaz, and then they brought 1 spoon, weighing 10 shekel, Melech Teres, which is filled with incense. Verse 33, Parappa Bakar, he brought 1 bull. Ayel echad, he brought 1 ram. Keves echad, 1 sheep, 1 lamb. And starts a loila, 1 year old for a burnt offering. Verse 34, Shizrach alachatas, 1 he-goat for a sin offering. And for the peace offering, he brought 2 oxen. Elim shlo chamisha, 5 he-goats. Atudim chamisha, 5 lambs. Vasvei shana chamisha. The 1st year. Korban Elitzur ben Shteir. This was the korban of Elitzur, the son of Shteir. On the fifth day, Nafi lived in Shimon. The fifth day was the head of the tribe of Shimon, Shlumiel ben Suri Shadoi. He offered one silver bowl weighing 130 shekel. One silver sprinkled basin weighing 70 shekel. Shnei Meleim Seles. Both of these two were full of flour, a little bashemen mixed with oil, a mincha for a meal. Verse 38. Kavachat Darazam Lake Teda has one spoon weighing 10 shekel of gold filled with incense. Verse 39. Parecha ben bakar, one young bull, ayelecha, one ram, kavasechad, one lamb, b'shasa la'ela, first year for important. It is an achas, one he goes for a and for the peace offering, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he goats, and 5 lambs, all in the first year. There, Karban Shlomiel ben Suri Shaddai. This is the offering of Shlomiel ben Suri Shaddai. That completes the published day. Now go to the Tanya of the day. We are holding second chapter, Shad HaYichud B'Amunah, holding the second chapter. So the Alter Rebbe continues. After explaining in the first chapter, the Alter Rebbe said, "V'ini mekan tshuvat haminim." Go, the answer to the heretics may be deduced. Gilu sheiros toyosav, and here they're exposed the root error of those who are deemed heretics. Not because they deny God created the world, because they denied the individual providence and the signs and the miracles recorded in the Torah. But they don't believe that God created the world. But there, once God created the world, he put the world into, so to say, a total natural motion. Really, the total natural, and they felt that the natural has nothing to do with God. Basically, he put it into system, and the Shemayish, the Eibishter, God separated himself from the world, and he said, "Let the world go." I wish you well. And that's right. It's chaotic. There's a chaotic world. Why did they say that? Because they erred in their false analogy. Because they compared the work of the heavens and the earth of God to the creation of man. Because when a person makes a vessel, that's it. He makes the vessel. He walks away from it. Shubarakli, the vessel doesn't need to have the guy who made the vessel. He doesn't need the craftsman anymore. The vessel is made. It's done. The vessel will be there once the craftsman made it. The vessel will be there if the craftsman had anything to do with it or not. The vessel has its own reality. Because even if the hands of the creator, the craftsman, removes itself and he goes on his way, the vessel remains exactly the same image and form, and as when it was left in the hands of the Mitzvah of the smith, because now the vessel stays a vessel. So they thought the same thing. So they thought God is the smith. He is the creator. But once he created the world is there. He doesn't have anything to do with that anymore. So way does the fools conceive the creation of the heavens and the earth. They imagine heaven and the earth once created no longer need the creator. They therefore deny individual divine providence. The signs and miracles according to the Torah. So much as these indicate that God continues to be involved with creation. And from time to time chooses to change the course of nature through miraculous means. They can change things. It's no concept of prayer. Is he Ratzah may be a new will in God's will for the world or for whatever's happening in the world. However, their eyes are covered. Have the brother that they don't see the great difference between the work of man and his actions. Yes, me, yes, because everything that man does is something from something. Man does not create anything. Man only, like merely change the form of appearance. Example, from an ingot of silver to a vessel, from a block of wood to a vessel. So man work merely consists of shaping pre-existing mass. Moreover, even a new appearance already existed in potential. So in this nugget, in this gold, in this silver was a vessel. It was not formed into a vessel. In this piece of wood was already the chair, or the table, or the cup. It was not formed into a table, but it had the potential to be anything you want the craftsman to form it into. Thus, in reality, the craftsman did not change the matter at all. Hence, once he finishes shaping his artifact, he can leave it in its own device because secure in knowledge that it's done, it doesn't need him anymore. So the above misguided thinkers fail to see the difference between the activities of a craftsman, to the making of the heavens and the earth. It's something from nothing. So before the heavens and the earth were created, they simply did not exist. Only after they were created did they come into being and existing identities. Their being is thus something utterly novel, something which previously had not existed at all. Such a situation, now, the Rebbe will soon conclude that the creative force which brings them into existence must be constantly recreate them and order them to exist. Were the force to withdraw even the briefest moment, creation will revert to nothing. And the creation is even more wondrous. And the miracle of the crossing of the sea. When God drove back the sea by a strong east wind all the night, so meaning the godly force that split the sea closed itself into the wind. And the waters were split, and not merely ceased their flow, but stood up as a wall. If God would stop the wind for a second, the water would return to its nature of flowing. And undoubtedly, they would not stand like a wall. Even though the nature of water to flow is also an unbelievable thing. Why does water flow? That's also created. Exactly, you say something is its nature. Water flows. Water does not. The difference between a brick wall, and water. Water flows, and a brick wall stands. Why? Why doesn't the brick wall flow and water stand? Who decided that water should flow? God. The nature itself is a creation of God, and God decided that a brick wall should stand. That also is a creation. Look over here, the Rebbe, he writes over here, the Rebbe points out, the Alter Rebbe means to say that not only is water itself a creation, but the nature of water to flow downward is also created. And the mighty wind caused the water to stand like a wall. Nothing was newly created, yesh mi'ayin. This was more than a case of yesh mi yesh. One existing state flowing water, was merely replaced by another existing state, the ability to stand straight. Nevertheless, since the ability of water to stand lock-like is something novel, but normal, that's what we call a miracle. The force that is responsible for this novelty, even though this novelty involves no more than a progression from one yes to another, must constantly close to come back. You have to have that wind to hold it standing still, because it's normal to flow. So if you understand that even by God, yes me yes, one thing, something for something, that God needs to make sure that it stays, this novelty stays in a reality, and that's considered a miracle. Something to beginning creation, something for nothing, it's a novelty. It's a miraculous thing. Thus see the fluidity of water is not instructed to its essence. In a way of a contrast, the fact that a created being occupies space, for example, is an essential characteristic that does not require separate creation. But the human being has density. In order for water to be fluid, a distinct act of creation is required. That the water is fluid, that's an unbelievable miracle, that water is fluid. Why doesn't water stand still? Why isn't water hard like a stone? That's the creation of God, that water is fluid. Now, you take water that's fluid and you make it stand. You didn't change the water. You changed the fluidity of the water. But the water was there. The water surrounded them. The water did not become not water. It was water that stood. So what's more creative, that the water stood or that water flows? The creation that water flows is an unbelievable thing. That's unbelievable. That is the real miracle in water. Baruch Hashem, it flows, and we can drink water. Imagine if water was like a brick. How would we drink water? It would be impossible. The aim is to create water to begin with the flow. That's the beginning creation. That's a great miracle than God creating water, and now he stopped it to stand. Water was still there. God took water and made it stand. But the beginning of creation, that water flows, and the water is water, that we know it, that's unbelievable act of creation. So if God needed to be there constantly to hold the water up, that it shouldn't become flowing, God needs to be there constantly. The water is water to begin with. So if you talk about the wonders of the crossing of the sea, that's an unbelievable miracle, you really need to talk about the wonder of water. That the water is a wondrous thing, and since it's such an unbelievable miracle, God needs to make sure there's water constantly. It's a miracle that God needs to continuously make sure that this miracle exists and continues to happen. That's why it's so important before you drink water is to make a blessing. We take it for granted, water. People just drink water to take it for granted. You can't live without water. And it's an unbelievable creation that God needs to make sure that continuously that water is water and stays the concept of water. Because you take a brick of stone, you take stones stand without a wind holding it up. That's Teva Mayim Enikim, the nature of water is not so. So since water by nature does not stand upright but flows downward, an additional degree of a creation of exonilo is called into is called for it for it for if it did not, for if it is to do so otherwise. But to demonstrate the divine force that clothes itself in the wind did not have to create Yesh Me'ayin, a newly existing being within creation. It merely had to change one Yesh to another. The wind came and pushed the water against and made a wall. One form of existence to another. The natural property of fluidity to the natural property of standing erect. Nevertheless, even in such a situation, since a radical degree of change is involved, because water flows now after the stand, it's necessary for a power causing to change the effect and change it unremittingly. Make sure the air and the wind is continuously blowing to keep that water standing. So if you understand that miracle, God had to create this wind to keep that water standing, because if not, it would go back to flowing. Surely then the Alter Rebbe soon includes, with regard to creation of the world, water to begin with, which comes from absolutely nothing. The activating force of the Creator must continuously be present in created universe, providing with life and existence. Indeed, we're not constantly present like the wind. The universe would go back to nothing. Over here, the water would revert to flowing. Over here, the universe would revert to nothing, because that's what it was before. Nothing. How much more so is the creation of something out of nothing, which transcends nature, and is far more miraculous than the splitting of the sea. So surely with the withdrawal of power to create from the things created, God forbid, the created thing would turn to nothing. It needs to be constantly activating the force of the Creator in the creation. To give it its life, to give its existence. And what is this life force? These are the forces of the letters of God's statements, for the 10 utterances, for which these utterances were created in the world. This is the reason that Rebbe writes. This is why the above quoted verse states, "Forever, O God, your word stands in heaven." God's speech, which is for the force that brings the created being into existence, must be present there forever, so as to give it life of existence. Then this is written, this is written, you give life to everything. You give life. Says the word va'ata, and you take the word ata, and you give life. I'll take a machaya elamahava. Don't read. The Zohar says don't read machaya, but mahava, don't give life. You bring into life. And the yesh mind. How do you bring it into life? So the Alter Rebbe continues, va'ata bin oises ba'alav ataf. Ata, the word ata, is aleph till taf. Ata is the first two letters is aleph and taf. So that's the first and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. You created the word ata. You created the world through the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. What's the hey? The hey, the hey are the 5 organs of the mouth. Makarasis, the larynx, the blade, the tongue, the teeth, and the lips, which are the source of the 5 letters. Because if you would be missing one of those entities, or one of those 5 would not work, it would be hard to say every letter. But sometimes hard to say different kinds of letters. because every letter needs to have another part of the mouth to be able to speak, to say the letter. This is the meaning of the Ata and you, the spiritual letters that emanate from the five supernal organs of verbal speech, provide life exo nihilo to the world created universe. The Eibushter, so to say, has, just like God, man has a mouth, so to say, God, spiritually, God doesn't have a physical mouth, but in spirituality, created in the image of God. Be careful what I'm saying, even though God does not have any bodily likeness. So I mean God has teeth and has all these five things. That doesn't mean that the God doesn't have a mouth. Never. But you have to go back to the verse. And the Torah talks like a human being, like to the language of humans. And therefore, the Torah says, "Vaydaber Hashem and God spoke, Vayomer Hashem and God said." So to be able to say these kind of expressions, you need to have the concept of speech. And for be able to a person to speak, you need to have these five concepts in his mouth, physical mouth. Yes, these are, when you say God spoke and God said, these are the 22 letters of the Torah. These supernal letters are enclosed in the intellect and comprehension, which is found in prophetic vision. And even they were clothed, ultimately the prophets, even though some of them didn't say the words of prophecy, but they thought the words of prophecy through the Hebrew alphabet. As explained by the Arizal in the portal of prophecy. Clearly, there exist letters and speech above which are capable of being garbed in the thought speech of the prophet. And similar to this is the investment of the letters in the created things, as it's written, by the word of God were heavens made, and by the breath of his mouth all his hosts. Except that the clothing of the letters in the created beings came through many numerous powerful descents. And ultimately, as he said, the numerical values and the way the letters are interchanged, etc., etc., until these letters reach the corporal world of Asiya. Where the apprehension of the prophets is in the world of Atzilus and became clothed in the world of Bria. So that's why they had a capability to take the words that they heard and have the concept of a spiritual revelation. Because by them, these words had a much deeper comprehension. And so too, the words of the prophets were sometimes hard for us to understand what they meant. But the prophets had a deeper meaning. Take the words of Tillim, David HaMelech. These are very spiritual words, godly words. And he had a great deeper interpretation to every word that he said in Tillim. Whether we comprehend it or not, we say the words of Tillim because those are the words that he said. Because he was a great prophet and he had been able to express himself even in words in a very deep and spiritual concepts. By us, we need to take our words and express very simple concepts, but not the prophets who have the capability of using God's words for very deep concepts. That completes the time of the day. Correct. So ice is the same analogy. You take ice, you take water, you put it into the freezer, and now it becomes solid. So you're taking water, and you're making it solid. You have the capability by freezing it. You're not changing it to yesh miyesh. The water is there. You put it into a very cold environment. Now it becomes solid. Make it so it needs to be constantly cold. The second it starts to warm up, what happens? The water becomes back a fluid. So nothing. There's not a great difference. The Eibushter didn't freeze the water. He took a wind and blew on the water. So there's two ways of making it right. The Egyptians could also frozen the water. That's a good idea. One got to freeze the water, and then they wouldn't have a second later that it would come on the Egyptians. So he took a wind, blew on the water, and then the Jews went through and the Egyptians were in. He just stopped the wind. It's a quicker process maybe, but the same. You're right. The same concept. You take the water, you put it into a freezer. You now make the water into an ice. But it needs to have something that makes it into an ice. Water flows. That's the way Gabish, that's the first nature of water, that it flows. You need to do something else. But you didn't create a great miracle by putting a water into a freezer. It completes the time of the day. Today is the 9th day of the month, and it goes from chapter 49 to chapter 54. Chapter 49, chapter 54 in your Tillim, and you would have done the Chitas of a day. Today we continue the fifth class. The fifth class of the book of the JLI course. This can happen at 7:30 tonight, either on Zoom or at the Chabad House. We are going to do the fifth class of this unbelievable course. I hope I see you all. It's the fifth class or the fourth class? I don't remember already. The fourth class of this great course. Hope to see you all in Midshem at 7:30 tonight. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Be well.